Notre Dame de Paris, a treasured icon of Gothic architecture and medieval engineering. Built from glass, stone, and timber, over the course of 2 centuries, it's one of the world's greatest cathedrals.
Notre Dame is one of humanity's greatest artistic and architectural achievements.
This epic 90-meter-tall symbol has stood at the heart of French culture and society for 850 years.
Notre-Dame, c'est pas uniquement Paris, mais c'est la France, et au-delà de la France, c'est le monde.
But on the 15th of April 2019, disaster strikes. A massive fire rages out of control and tears through the cathedral, leaving it in ruins. Now, a team of master craftspeople and elite engineers battle to save this fragile structure from a catastrophic collapse.
Scaffolding. On doit sortir.
Out of tragedy is born opportunity.
Oh, this is a dating fossil.
To solve archaeological mysteries and understand the very fabric of this medieval megastructure like never before.
We can identify each chemical element.
Yes, it is important information.
For the last year, our cameras have had unique access to follow teams inside Notre Dame. Can they decode clues from the past and use pioneering technology to rebuild this historic landmark? This is the inside story of the first year in the race to save Notre Dame Cathedral. The Cathedral of Notre Dame de Paris, an 850-year-old Gothic wonder. It's the heart of France. Roads were traditionally measured from this iconic structure.
There is a continuation, a historical continuation from the Middle Ages to nowadays. And it's very important to build a kind of identity. Notre Dame is one of the monuments which achieved this identity.
For Christians, it's a place of worship, right? And for those of us with different beliefs, it's one of just this incredible artistic and historical landmark. You've had coronations there, you've had the crowning of Napoleon and King Henry, and there's just so much attached to the cathedral.
But Notre Dame is much more than that. It's also the pinnacle of medieval engineering. The cathedral can hold 9,000 worshippers, and its 33-meter-tall walls contain more than 3,000 square meters of stained glass. The ceiling is a series of domed Gothic vaults that hold up the cathedral from the inside. A complex 500-ton web of timber forms a cross-shaped roof, topped with 1,300 lead tiles, and a 90-meter-tall central spire. Wrapped around the church are 28 flying buttresses, limestone arches that brace the walls from the outside. And at the front, 2 mighty towers, with 10 massive bronze bells inside, soar over 68 meters into the sky over Paris.
The construction took many generations. Architecture was not learned at the university, so the architects and all workers learned mostly on site.
Along the way, there were many setbacks. In 1789, at the height of the French Revolution, anti-Catholic forces destroy parts of the cathedral. A newly secular France leaves Notre Dame in a state of neglect. But when Victor Hugo writes The Hunchback of Notre Dame in 1831, it sparks a £170 million restoration that tops out the cathedral with a new roof and a 750-ton timber and lead spire. And periodic renovations continue to this day. On the 15th of April 2019, Notre Dame is wrapped in 500 tons of scaffolding as the cathedral begins a £5 million operation to shore up the spire.
Merci, ma chère Mado. Merci beaucoup.
Notre Dame's rector, Father Patrick Chauvet, has finished evening worship. His world is about to be turned upside down.
Je me suis arrêté parce que j'aime bien Mado et elle m'a offert un petit verre et elle arrive et elle dit « Mais monseigneur, il y a de la fumée au-dessus de la flèche de la cathédrale. » Et donc j'ai laissé mon verre, je suis reparti immédiatement pour vérifier qu'il n'y avait plus personne dans la cathédrale.
At 6:18 p.m., a sensor detects smoke in the medieval roof timbers. The system sends a coded fire alert to the security team. Instead of heading straight for the roof, a guard is dispatched to the sacristy building nearby to check for a fire, but he finds nothing. He climbs up into the church attic, but by the time he gets there, he's too late. The fire has been burning for almost 30 minutes and spread across the roof.
And there was this horrifyingly huge plume of smoke billowing up out of it. It was surreal. I'd never seen anything like that before. You saw the fire trucks come up alongside the cathedral and ladders went up and the hoses came out. You could see that the ladders were just too small for a building of this size, and the hoses were not nearly big enough for this kind of blaze. It was tragic. The resources that were available were not going to be what was needed to bring this thing under control. A lot of us realized that this fire was just going to ravage the cathedral.
On regardait ce qui se passait et on était impuissants, on ne pouvait rien faire. Ça ressemblait vraiment à la fin du monde, c'est vraiment chaotique.
A delay in responding to a fire of this nature is absolutely critical. A small fire burning locally is a very different thing than 10 minutes later when all of the timber elements are involved. So in a situation like this, 5, 10, 30 minutes can make all the difference.
This delay will have huge repercussions. As firefighters arrive on scene, so does one of France's chief architects of historic monuments, Rémy Froment.
J'ai réussi à passer en fait les barrages de police et donc j'étais en fait avec les pompiers.
As the inferno rages at the top of the cathedral, Rémy risks his life to venture inside with the firefighters.
On a fait le tour plusieurs fois de la cathédrale avec les pompiers, on est allé voir dans la nef. J'ai vu les flammes, j'ai vu le brasier. Je leur ai donné en fait tous les conseils que je pouvais.
Within minutes, the firefighters are pumping tons of water into the attic space, but it's not working. To the horror of the growing crowd, the fire engulfs the famous spire. The world watches helplessly as the 750-ton oak and lead masterpiece gives way.
Oh my God, that is awful.
When the spire fell into the roof, an additional ventilation will have caused more oxygen-rich air to be sucked in at the bottom of the compartment. That influx of oxygen could have caused an increase in the severity of the fire within Notre Dame.
Donc tout d'un coup, en fait, on a vu un énorme nuage de feu qui est passé au-dessus de la cathédrale, avec des cendres et des escarbilles qui sont tombés sur tout le monde. Donc on s'est mis à couvert.
It was just devastating to watch. We were suddenly really aware of how easily this whole thing could come down.
90 minutes after the fire begins, the entire roof of the cathedral is ablaze. Inside, it's become even more dangerous for Rémy and the firefighters. Getting this fire under control looks impossible.
Le feu au sol, la fumée partout, le trou, et essayer de comprendre ce qui se passait, voir où était le problème, savoir ce qui était tombé, est-ce qu'il y avait d'autres risques.
A southeasterly wind picks up and pushes the blaze towards the famous bell towers.
Si les beffrois partent en feu, si les cloches descendent, elles peuvent perforer tout en dessous.
Inside the ingeniously engineered 13th century North Tower, a scaffold of wooden beams holds 8 bells, the biggest weighing more than 4 tons. If the beams burn through, they'll trigger a fatal chain reaction. The bells will fall like wrecking balls and destroy the tower's wooden backbone. If the tower falls, it could trigger a deadly domino effect that brings down the entire cathedral. To avert this catastrophic collapse, the firefighters have no option but to venture deeper inside.
Le président Macron a dit, c'est clair, il faut envoyer les pompiers. Il faut sauver la cathédrale.
Voilà, on est allé dans la tour nord au moment où ça commençait à brûler au niveau du beffroi avec eux. Les pompiers la connaissaient bien, je l'ai accompagné et en fait on se guidait mutuellement.
To douse the fire on the roof, firefighters pump water from the River Seine and feed it to fire trucks around the cathedral. But to stop the towers collapsing, they must send a team into the burning structure. Their mission: drop hoses in between the towers and fight the fire spreading from the roof. But the steady wind doesn't let up. And despite their efforts, the timber frame holding the bells has caught fire and could trigger the destruction of the cathedral at any moment. So the team must drag their hoses to the top of the tower and soak the timber frame to prevent the unthinkable. Throughout the night, the fate of Notre Dame hangs in the balance. Eventually, the firefighters get the upper hand. The flames have been beaten back and only glowing embers light up the night sky. Nobody knows how the fire started. An investigation begins. But for now, the urgent question: how damaged is the structure and can it ever be rebuilt? President Macron pledges to restore the cathedral in 5 years.
Alors je vous le dis très solennellement ce soir, cette cathédrale, nous la rebâtirons. Tous ensemble.
The world keeps vigil for Notre Dame. Daylight reveals the full extent of the terrible destruction wrought by the fire. The oak roof and spire are completely destroyed. Toxic lead that covered the roof has been sprayed into the air, contaminating the site. Burned roof timbers cover the vaulting. 3 gaping holes in the stone vaults weaken the entire structure. And the 500-ton scorched carcass of scaffolding could collapse at any moment. Something unthinkable to those tasked with preserving France's rich cultural heritage.
Je suis devant ma cathédrale, mais qui est dans cet état-là, j'agis.
Philippe Villeneuve is in charge of historic monuments in France. This is the cathedral that inspired him to become an architect.
Je devais avoir 5 ou 6 ans. Mes parents m'ont emmené un jour ici, comme tout petit Parisien. Là, je suis tombé fasciné par cette architecture. Et puis ça m'a plus jamais quitté.
Since 2013, Philippe has been in charge of conserving Notre Dame.
C'était l'aboutissement d'un rêve. C'était un rêve éveillé, si on peut dire, qui aujourd'hui s'est transformé en cauchemar.
The stricken cathedral is a giant house of cards. If the stone vaulting collapses, the weight of the buttresses will push in the 33-meter-high walls, and Notre Dame will be no more.
Déjà, merci à tous d'être là.
So Philippe assembles a rapid response team. Dozens of engineers, architects and scientists. Their task is to prevent a total collapse of the cathedral.
Du fond du cœur, je vous remercie énormément pour votre implication, votre méthodologie, votre passion pour faire cette chose très difficile, mais qui est essentielle pour l'avenir du chantier de la cathédrale.
It's not only a difficult job, it's also hazardous. The crumbling stone vaults and twisted scaffolding make even venturing inside to investigate the stability of the structure extremely dangerous.
Sur les voûtes, on a ce problème d'impact du feu, mais il y aura aussi à évaluer le problème, l'impact de l'eau qui a servi à éteindre l'incendie.
On peut voir d'ici l'intérieur avec...
To go out. The scaffolding is moving. Scaffolding.
Motion sensors are installed in the melted jumble of scaffolding overhead. These can be triggered by gusts of wind or signal a full-scale collapse.
C'est l'alarme de l'échafaudage qui a bougé. On doit sortir.
There are evacuations like this each week that slow progress.
C'est très difficile de mettre en jeu d'équilibrer tout ça. Le problème, c'est qu'on est obligé d'agir très vite. Ça va parfois à l'encontre de la réalité de ce monument qui est toujours menacé d'effondrement. Là, on est toujours en phase de sécurisation de la cathédrale.
To avert a catastrophic collapse, engineers could build a steel skeleton inside the nave to brace the walls. Then, even if the vaulting caves in, the walls of Notre Dame would stay standing. But it's far too dangerous for workers to erect steelwork beneath the compromised structure.
On ne peut pas aller sous les voûtes parce qu'on ne sait pas si elles vont tomber ou pas.
So instead of bracing the walls from the inside, the team will build timber frames under the buttresses outside. Now, if the vaulting does fall in, the buttresses can't push on the walls, and they won't come tumbling down.
C'est la liste des pièces à tailler pour le chantier. N'oublie pas d'essayer de tailler en premier ce qu'ils doivent assembler à côté.
Qui sont très difficiles parce que, en fait, aucun arc-boutant n'est identique, donc aucun cintre n'est identique, c'est du sur-mesure.
Workers at this specialized factory race to cut and assemble around 225 tons of timber to create the massive supports Philippe's team needs to prop up the vaults. It's critical each support fits perfectly beneath each flying buttress to hold its weight. Working around and inside this space is a logistical nightmare. 200 tons of lead cladding covered the cathedral roof. This was mostly melted during the fire, and now toxic lead dust covers every surface. The work site is highly contaminated. Until the site is cleaned, team members must wear full protective clothing to pass into the contaminated zone. When leaving site, they undress, discard all clothing, carefully wash equipment, then shower themselves. Only then can they go back to the clean area, even for a lunch break.
C'est très difficile à supporter de la part des compagnons qui, depuis des mois, résistent à ces dispositions-là, qui ne sont pas des dispositions qu'on va dire normales. Mais ce chantier n'est pas normal.
But finally, 5 months later, all 28 flying buttresses are locked in place and the walls are safe. Now they can turn to the next challenge. Secure the melted mass of scaffolding that hangs precariously over the cathedral. The scaffold weighs more than a jumbo jet and only rests on 4 spindly legs. The team plans to wrap 3 massive steel lattice beams around it to tie the fragile upper parts together. Then they'll build more scaffolding either side and lay steel beams across it. This way, workers can get inside the stricken scaffolding to help cut off its 50,000 steel poles, a truly Herculean task. Only then can the team put up a temporary roof to protect them from the elements while they rebuild Notre Dame.
Ça va être une opération extrêmement périlleuse. La flèche a disparu, la charpente a disparu, mais l'échafaudage est toujours là. Il bouge un petit peu, mais il est toujours là.
While engineers gear up to remove the scaffolding, architect Rémi Fremont and Livio De Luca begin a groundbreaking project that will combine the investigative work with new scientific analysis. Their ambition is to create a data-rich model of Notre Dame, a digital twin.
The digital twin will embed not only the geometric structure or the visual appearance of the cathedral, but also all the scientific data coming from studies. For example, you can click on a stone, a vault, and access to all the information about its physical properties, such as the provenance, but also the mechanical behavior within the entire structure.
This 3D dynamic map will show every stone, timber, and iron nail in the structure, across time, from the 12th century to the present day.
This is an unprecedented project. The ambition is to collect all the information from the past to pass it to the future.
There's very little first-hand information about the construction of Notre Dame or the craftspeople who built it. In the wake of the fire, new studies of the cathedral's materials could unlock these secrets. This new data, captured in the digital twin, will provide a blueprint for the restoration and rebuild. Inside Notre Dame, scientists begin to gather data and investigate the damage to treasured statues, murals, and windows. The cathedral's most fragile wonder, its stained glass, dates back to the 13th century. 36 windows circled the lower level, 42 around the middle level, and 43 around the upper level. The 3 famous rose windows span up to 13 meters in diameter and are made up of over 1,100 panels of beautiful stained glass. But the intense heat from the fire that melted the cathedral's lead-covered roof means that today, much of the remaining glasswork is covered in a layer of toxic lead powder.
It was really painful to see the catastrophe on the TV. I was looking to see what's happened around the windows, and it was, of course, totally difficult to have a good idea of what's happened. There is a before and after 15 April for historical monuments, that's for sure.
Glass scientist Claudine Loisel uses a handheld digital microscope to investigate the levels of lead powder on the stained glass. She must then formulate a strategy to clean every single panel. It's a vast decontamination program that will make the glass safe for restorers to begin work. This window is in the back of the cathedral, in the lower level, furthest from the inferno. But it's still badly contaminated.
Regarde la quantité de suie.
Fortunately, these windows have not been cleaned for 100 years, so the lead has settled on top of a dust layer, not on the glass itself.
The first thick layer of deposit was, we can say, as a small protection in one way. So we have just to remove all the deposit to clean these windows from the 19th century.
Claudine examines deposits from windows around the cathedral. The samples reveal vital clues about the spread of the lead contamination.
After the spire fell, the cloud of dust, lead and different particles pushed in the other direction. So we are a little bit more protected in this area.
The windows of the upper level in the path of the lead cloud have been most contaminated. The team takes out and transports these panels to this special laboratory, where they experiment with ways to remove the lead. First, Claudine uses a precision vacuum cleaner to hoover up the 100 years of dust and most of the lead powder along with it.
So this is a good way to protect the conservator. You can control the action, the pressure on the glass and also on the painting.
Then she uses water and cotton balls to meticulously remove the last of the lead.
Of course, you need scientific evidence that it's working.
Claudine uses X-ray spectroscopy to measure exactly how many wipes it takes to bring the lead down to normal levels.
So we can identify each chemical element we have in the material.
Too few wipes and the lead will remain. Too many wipes and restoration will take longer than necessary.
Okay, now the analysis is finished.
After 5 wipes with the distilled water, Claudine checks to see if the glass is decontaminated.
Okay, we have different chemical elements, calcium, iron, and if we want to see the lead, there is no lead. After 9 months, we can see a good solution, a good way to clean and to preserve the stained glass windows from Notre Dame.
The upper-level windows were not only in the path of the lead cloud, but also closest to the inferno. Claudine hunts for hairline cracks caused by thermal shock, the rapid heating and cooling of the glass.
This is one window from the choir, and we have 2 panels from the middle of the bay, but here we have a crack.
The handheld digital microscope helps Claudine see deep into the crack. If it's caused by the fire, it will be clean and fresh. If it's older, it will be full of residue.
We can see the well-defined line of the cracks with no residue. So we can say this cracks is due to the fire. This is a recent cracks, and this is typical thermal shock.
It looks like the upper-level stained glass will need to be painstakingly glued back together. But inside Notre Dame, the lower-level stained glass appears to have survived unscathed.
And here we can see we have a good stability and adherence of the painting. So there is absolutely no thermal shock. That's a good news for us.
On site, the teams of scientists meet the engineers and architects to share their findings.
Bonjour à tous. Et donc nous allons vous présenter la restitution des résultats sur les opérations de déplombage des chapelles, la chapelle numéro 1.
Once Claudine's team has restored Notre Dame's glasswork to its former glory, they may use a radical new preservation technique to safeguard it for future generations. It's being used on a huge scale here in northern England. This is York Minster, an 800-year-old Gothic masterpiece and home to the largest expanse of medieval stained glass in the UK, the Great East Window.
It is one of the largest windows ever made anywhere in the medieval world. We've got glass from the 12th right through to the 18th century in quite significant quantities, and it is really our national treasure house of stained glass.
Engineers here are completing a £10 million project to protect York Minster's stained glass from harmful UV rays and the corrosive effects of moisture.
In modern stained glass conservation, we're really doing as much as we can to keep both surfaces of the historic stained glass dry and stable, and that's where our ventilated environmental protective glazing comes into play.
Right, I can see that I'm almost in. So I think it's just this last bit here.
Matt Nichols is installing this new conservation system. He slots a protective clear glass exterior frame into the window opening.
And this goes into the original glazing groove where the medieval glass would have been.
This protective glazing prevents corrosive condensation from forming on the 800-year-old stained glass that will sit behind it.
The gap created means that there's air circulation running through. And when you've got air circulation, it's regulating the temperature, which means that there's less moisture on the glass.
Each frame is custom made and takes great skill to fit.
You don't want to make it too small because it's going to obviously slide through. No two windows are going to be the same.
With the outer panel installed, they can reinstate the layer of medieval glass.
They're actually in fairly good condition, considering that they're early 13th century. There's always the worry whenever you're handling glass like this, but you just got to make sure that you're really, really careful. There's nothing quite like seeing it with sunlight behind it. When you put it up like this, it's quite magical, isn't it?
Techniques like this offer a glimpse of how scientists like Claudine may eventually preserve Notre Dame's glass.
This is the best way to protect stained glass window, so it will be for sure an option to protect the windows from Notre Dame.
By an incredible stroke of luck, the 3 spectacular rose windows of Notre Dame that date from the 13th century survive the fire intact.
It was a great relief to see all the panel in place, in good stability, so it was really, everything is okay.
Had the vaulting collapsed next to the windows, the glass could have been badly damaged. But luckily, the stone vaulting, which sits just under the timber and lead roof, protected the windows from the inferno above.
L'architecte du Moyen-Âge, quand il a construit ces voûtes, il a fait la charpente, parce qu'il faut un toit, est ainsi séparée du reste de la cathédrale par la voûte. Et là, la voûte a encaissé le choc des bois, le feu et l'eau pour éteindre.
The magnificent vaulting was built to be resilient, thanks to precise medieval craftsmanship, using an estimated 800 cubic meters of limestone. The arches work together to support the roof and stabilize the outer walls. But the intense heat from the fire and the collapsing spire took out 15% of the stone vaulting. Today, 3 12-meter wide holes and several smaller gaps mean the vaults could collapse at any moment. The team collects, stores and catalogues the fallen stone in this tent, located alongside the cathedral. They may be able to use some of this stone to reconstruct the vaults. But medieval masons never intended the stone to be subject to an 800-degree inferno, then soaked with tons of water. Now, without a roof to protect it, areas of the vaulting are exposed to the elements. Stone scientist Jean-Didier Mertz forces mercury at high pressure through samples of the damaged vaulting to calculate the porosity of the stones. This tells him how sponge-like the stonework has become 1 year on from the fire.
The damage produced some cracks due to the fire. With these cracks, it is possible to the water to go in and to fill all the cracks.
Jean-Didier confirms the surface of the vaulting stones are covered with micro-cracks, dramatically increasing the porosity. Greater porosity means the vaulting can absorb more water than they thought, potentially swelling the blocks. As the blocks dry, they then shrink. Jean-Didier has dried this vaulting stone under lab conditions. He knows the block holds 2 kilos of water and takes 6 months to fully dry.
The vault of Notre Dame, it is not exactly the same because the cathedral is not completely sealed, and we have new rainwater and the repeated cycle of swelling and shrinkage. It is a real decay. It is a weathering of the material.
Even if some fallen vaulting stone can be reused, it's clear they'll also need to source new stone.
Il faut absolument avoir une vision très globale de la cathédrale et en même temps savoir qu'à tel endroit, ce que vous faites là, est-ce que si je fais ça, qu'est-ce qui se passe? Et après, on peut y aller.
Notre Dame is made up of many different types of limestone. Medieval masons chose hard limestone for the towers, pillars and outer walls to build tall and hold up the roof. For the sculptures, they chose dense, fine-grained limestone that can be carved with great detail. And for the vaults, they selected softer, more porous limestone that's light but strong. If the team rebuilding the vaults picks a limestone that is too heavy, the new vaults may not last as long as they should. Geologist Lise Leroux investigates what quarry this stone came from.
We have some blocks coming from the collapse of the vault for a study.
This detective work will help the team source replacement stone that shares identical mechanical properties.
We have to verify.
The fallen vaulting stone contains a rare microfossil called Orbitolites complanatus, a kind of plankton. Fossils like this are found in just one layer of rock. This will make sourcing new stone of the same type even trickier. Can they use this geological fingerprint to discover the original source of the vaulting stone?
Impressionnant.
To find out, Lise and fellow Notre Dame scientist Claudine Loisel ventured deep beneath Paris. Hidden under the city's streets is a rich source of limestone, a vast labyrinth of quarry tunnels. Lise and Claudine enter this maze, 2 miles south of Notre Dame, in the famous catacombs.
Ah oui, c'est surprenant, hein? Eh oui, impressionnant. Imagine tous les ancêtres. Voilà.
In the late 18th century, the quarries were given a different purpose, and they housed bones from old cemeteries, which were inside the towns, cemeteries which were closed at the end of the 18th century for sanitary reasons.
Amongst the bones, Lise and Claudine find traces left by the medieval miners.
Et puis le bloc qui est sorti, et on a donc la trace. On peut rectifier les faces et l'utiliser pour la construction comme à Notre-Dame. Et la taille du banc, elle va générer la hauteur du bloc qu'on peut extraire. Et ça, c'est les assises qu'on a à Notre-Dame. C'est des blocs qui ont cette hauteur-là.
D'accord.
La carrière impose une contrainte constructive sur l'édifice et à Notre-Dame.
On a la vie et on a la mort.
Ah bah oui. Oui.
The upper level of the quarry holds hard limestone with large, well-preserved fossils.
These fossils are more characteristic of limestones used for the pillars, the arch in Notre Dame, but not for the vault.
Lise and Claudine hope to find a match for the soft vaulting stone in the lower level of the quarry.
Now to look if we can find the specific microfossils. I'm not sure because the surface is very rough and it's not so clear because of the state of the surface.
The limestone here is softer, but Lise cannot see a match for the rare microfossil found in the Notre Dame vaulting sample. So back in the lab, she takes a closer look at a sample of limestone from the lower level of the quarry.
These little fossils, this one, this one, this one, are in fact some planktonic fossils, which are called foraminifera.
It's not the fossil signature she's looking for. But then...
Oh! This one here is Orbitolites complanatus. This little planktonic fossil is a dating fossil which match with the stone coming from the vault. It's a stratigraphic indicator, characteristic from the Middle Lutetion, which is a geological age of deposit.
Lise confirms the origin of the Notre Dame vaulting stone. It's quarried from the deepest seams of limestone beneath Paris.
Conclusive.
But what about the harder limestone, used by medieval masons to build Notre Dame's load-bearing pillars and arches. Another microfossil signature confirms the origin of this type as well.
The arches are built with a hard stone, with a resistant stone to support the vault. And the vault in itself is logically constructed with a lighter, more porous stone. And in the quarry located in Paris, we have these two kinds of stone.
Medieval masons knew exactly how to exploit the varying mechanical properties of the limestone for Notre Dame. Knowledge passed down through the generations. Sourcing more of the correct stone won't be easy. The old quarries are no longer active. But engineers now know what limestone to look for. This will help them find a match in quarries outside Paris. Stone is not the only raw material that will need to be replaced as engineers reconstruct Notre Dame. The timber roof was also a medieval wonder. It was constructed from 700 cubic meters of timber cut from 52 acres of oak. That's approximately 1,300 trees. For this reason, it was known as the forest. Every single oak in Notre Dame's forest was hand-picked for the physical properties needed in the roof structure, from dense straight oak for pillars to curved oak for support arches. But the fire consumed every beam in the forest. Today, this intricate 500-ton timber jigsaw lies in ruins.
Alors cette charpente qu'on a connue, effectivement immense, absolument sublime, comme un grand puzzle de morceaux de bois de différentes époques, depuis le XIIIe siècle jusqu'à nos jours, et de voir que d'un seul coup, tout ça a brûlé, plus ou moins, tout ça a fondu, c'est vrai que c'est très très émouvant, c'est très difficile.
Over 50 tons of the precious roof timber lie precariously on top of the vaults. Despite the destruction, every single beam holds the history of Notre Dame. It has deep archaeological value. It's vital that workers forensically record the position where each beam fell before they remove them. This helps them determine where it originally sat in the roof structure. These highly trained rope access technicians catalogue and clear the charred timber on the vaults.
Ça marche. On va essayer de se faire cette première zone-là.
D'accord.
Zone soleillée.
It's not possible to walk on the vault. The structure is very precarious. They needed to create a way to access with ropes. We need to wear a special mask because of the lead dust that we might inhale. We label the timbers and we mark them with a code that the architects will be able to identify.
Donc là, la 96, donc la 95, ok, 96 ici.
The team has their work cut out. There are thousands of separate pieces of timber to catalogue.
We have a lot of work to do. That's why we're working day and night.
They've already extracted around 4,000 pieces. Timber scientist Catherine Lavier begins painstaking detective work to reveal how Notre Dame's vast forest was originally assembled and could be rebuilt today.
Some pieces were very well preserved because, as you see here, with different faces, and another piece of wood is coming here with a wooden joint here to assemble them. And it's rather typical from the medieval period. And here you have a mark of carpenters. So they are sure that this piece with this piece are together. It's very important for carpenters. They prepare the wood on the ground, and after that they go to the roof and reassemble again. Every carpenter has his own way to mark, but in general it's based on the Roman numbers. but we can find some differences between teams of carpenters. We were very surprised to find that because I thought everything will be destroyed, and finally not.
The tree rings of the timbers conceal further clues. Each ring represents 1 year of growth, a time capsule of information about the life of the tree in that year. Catherine analyzes core samples from Notre Dame's roof trusses. She measures each ring to reveal the secret story of the very oak trees the structure was made from.
Sur cet écran sont enregistrées la largeur de chacun des cernes que j'ai mesurés. Au début de sa vie, on voit qu'il y a des cernes très très larges, ici, qui correspondent effectivement à un accroissement rapide. Ensuite, il peut y avoir des événements un petit peu plus dramatiques, des années donc difficiles, où là, les cernes vont être très minces. Par exemple, beaucoup de pluie et pas assez de soleil et pas assez de nutriments. Et puis, la vie de l'arbre se poursuit jusqu'au moment où on l'a coupé, vers environ sa 96e année.
Catherine is gaining new insight into the types of trees best suited to rebuild the complex forest of Notre Dame. This extraordinary challenge will require around 1,300 oak trees, craftspeople versed in the lost art of medieval carpentry practices, and a blueprint for possibly the most complex timber structure in Europe. The one person who may possess the key to unlock the lost forest's geometrical secrets is architect Rémi Fremont. In 2014, Rémi spent the entire year mapping every inch of the timber.
C'est un endroit qui était complètement magique. On rentrait là-dedans et il y avait une odeur, il y avait une ambiance très particulière de luminosité. On avait encore les traces d'outils aussi sur les bois. On avait l'impression parfois qu'il était parti hier, quoi.
We are collecting photographs, 3D point clouds, and physical and chemical characterization of all the materials.
The fire at Notre Dame triggers a race across France to 3D scan historical monuments inside and out. These represent a digital insurance policy to preserve French heritage. The laser bounces off each contour in the room. The machine then measures the time it takes for the laser to return. Millions of measurements form a cloud of data, called a point cloud. In 2016, researchers used this same technology to create a full point cloud of Notre Dame's lost timber roof structure. This remarkable 3D scan will combine with Rémi's 2014 survey in Livio's digital twin for Notre Dame.
What we are producing today will be probably the information usable for the next generations.
The team now has the data they need to rebuild the timber roof with the exact same geometry. And the 500 tons of new oak needed could come from forests like this. Almost a third of France is covered with forest. Oak was a vital strategic resource throughout the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. Vast forests were needed to build cities and expand navies. Felling and carving oak for Notre Dame's roof requires carpenters skilled in using medieval tools and techniques, like this team who keeps the old ways alive to this day.
We rebuild buildings using only hand tools and no power tools at all. Using this kind of tool, you don't apply your vision on the tree. You have your work influenced by the shape of the tree itself.
Today, carpenter Léo Rousseau has the honor of felling his first tree using techniques from the Middle Ages.
Yeah, I guess like everything takes practice. You don't have to go to the sports room at night.
You don't want your tree to fall into another tree because you want to use the other trees for the next generations. So the idea is to create here a hinge that gives you the direction where you want the tree to fall. And then you cut from the back for the tree to fall. Centimètres du trait.
Attention!
Leo now has a taste of what it took for the Notre Dame carpenters to source the 1,300 oaks for the roof timbers.
Bon, pas évident. Good. Merci. I like the feeling that you have to put so much effort into one tree. It gives you a little bit of respect on what you're gonna do with that particular beam, or yeah, it's a different feeling.
Carpenters are using the old ways to restore the Château de Beaumesnil in Normandy. It's a National Historic Monument, built on the site of an 1,100-year-old castle.
Qui a été construit en 7 ans, donc quelque chose d'extraordinaire pour 7 ans de travaux.
The chateau has seen better days. The curved beams that hold up the roof are close to collapse and must be replaced.
Les fils du bois a été coupé, ce qui donne une moins bonne résistance à la jambe de force. Et puis on voit ici qu'il y a des pièces qui sont complètement rongées et les bois qui se dégradent, rongés par les champignons.
The carpenters here face many of the same challenges that Notre Dame restorers will need to overcome when they rebuild the cathedral's lost forest. The timber has been chosen so the curve of the grain perfectly matches the curve of the new beam.
If you get a straight tree, which has a straight grain, and if you cut a curved piece of wood inside of this, so here is the fiber, so it can break right there. But if you take the tree that's curved, the fiber is like this. So it cannot break. You keep all of the structural strength of the tree.
They use an original beam to produce a template and mark out the new beam on the oak.
Ouais, bah c'est pas mal, on peut tracer comme ça.
The carpenters who built Notre Dame would be familiar with the tools this team uses to hew the raw timber.
So we would start with these axes. You know, it's a long handle, which gives you a long swing. Because if you want to make notches cutting deep in the wood, so you want a long handle to give you momentum, and you use the weight of the tool itself to basically do the job. And after you split most of the wood, you use a second type of axe, which is called a broad axe. There are single bevel, long cutting edge, and the handle is offset. So if you're working, as you go down, your hand here, you see I'm not hitting this sharp edge.
For skilled carpenters, cutting Notre Dame's roof timbers with axes compared to a modern sawmill would take roughly twice the time. This curved oak will be one of 10 the team needs to install as part of the chateau roof restoration. It sits alongside this 400-year-old original beam.
Celle-ci qui a été taillée probablement en 1635-37 et celle-ci 2020. C'est extraordinaire. Nos ancêtres, j'espère, seraient contents de nous.
Just like the Notre Dame beams, the chateau's original beam holds messages from the old carpenters.
Extraordinaire de retrouver toutes ces marques-là. C'est très vieux et à la fois on a l'impression que ça a été fait hier.
French carpenters have the oak, they have the skills, and they have the plans required to reconstruct Notre Dame's vast forest of roof timbers.
Quand on va regarder ces poussières ou cet empoussièrement, on va pouvoir dire si il provient vraiment de l'incendie.
While the architects consider options for rebuilding the roof, they must also work out what innovations to engineer into the structure to safeguard it against future fires. Scientists here at the University of Edinburgh's School of Engineering use scale models to investigate how fires spread through timber structures, like the forest of Notre Dame.
Our job is to understand the underlying physics and then to use our understanding of the physics
to create strategies by which people can be more safe and assets can be more safe from fire.
As Luke ignites a single beam in this model of a timber roof structure,
ignition!
It becomes clear how quickly the energy radiates to the timber beam alongside until it too catches fire. This phenomenon is called re-radiation.
In a structure like a roof at Notre Dame, what we had is a collection of timber members in a nice pattern, all kind of looking at each other as they burn. And that fact that they're looking at each other, they're radiating at each other, is what causes the fire to grow and escalate in such a dramatic way. If you create a gap or a fire break within your network of timber elements, you can prevent the combustion from occurring on the far side of the fire break.
To stop the spread of fires like this, today, engineers build fire-separating partitions into the roofs of historic buildings. These firewalls are erected inside the roof of York Minster. In the event of a fire, they should prevent the re-radiation and transfer of energy. Innovations like this could help safeguard Notre Dame's new roof against future threats. One year after the fire that ravaged Notre Dame Cathedral, investigators have still not pinpointed the cause of the blaze, and immense challenges and uncertainties still lie ahead. The building is not yet out of danger. Over the next 12 months, engineers must remove the melted scaffolding and seal the cathedral roof to make it watertight. Then they can stabilize the weakened vaulting. It's a monumental feat, and rebuilding the entire cathedral could take much longer than the 5 years decreed by President Macron.
Face à un tel drame, il y a heureusement l'espérance.
Il faut la foi pour faire un projet pareil. C'est l'édifice qui génère en lui-même en fait cette foi, même pour des gens qui sont complètement athées. Voilà. Et ça, c'est quelque chose qui est assez magique.
Architects around the world have unleashed their imagination to submit grand plans for what the new spire above Notre Dame could look like. From mirrored roofs with kaleidoscopic pinnacles and vast solar panels powering nearby buildings, to stained glass edifices that will light up the Paris skyline. However Notre Dame is rebuilt, the unique collaboration of architects and scientists is rewriting how we understand the very fabric of this magnificent cathedral.
I think the fire in some ways helped remind a lot of people what an important part of our sort of shared history and shared culture this is.
Soon, a complete digital twin of Notre Dame should allow future generations of craftspeople to maintain, protect, and faithfully rebuild Notre Dame as many times as necessary.
J'ai qu'une obsession, c'est sauver la cathédrale et la redresser et la rouvrir au public.